Hello and welcome to our review of the Shawshank Redemption. Today, we will be looking at four of the film's main characters, the theme of freedom and its importance in the movie, whether or not this movie is suitable to be studied as senior cycle, and our overall opinion of the movie.
Red is an important character in the story of the Shawshank Redemption as we see much of the story from his point of view. Red has a sense of authority in the prison, specifically to the prisoners, as he can smuggle in contraband into the prison such as cigarettes, posters, or rock hammers, for example. By the time Andy arrives in Shawshank, Red has already served 20 years of a life sentence. It's around this time Red gives up all hope of ever leaving the prison, as we hear him say, "Same old shit, different day," after a meeting with the parole board. After Andy's arrival, Red and him quickly become good friends after they first meet. Red is a well-respected and wise character, knowing what to and not to do in the prison. By the time Red is released from Shawshank Prison, he has spent a whopping 40 years in the prison. Over this time, Red, much like Brooks, also became institutionalized, however was able to keep up with the outside world through the hope of meeting his friend Andy. Red is a wise and interesting character and serves as a main character in the film. Brooks is one of the first people the audience is introduced to after Andy arrives at Shawshank Prison. Brooks is one of the older inmates in Shawshank and seems quite content with prison life. Brooks acts as the prison's librarian and is good friends with Red as he helps with his business transporting goods to other prisoners on his nightly rounds. Brooks has a love for animals, especially birds, which may act as a symbol of freedom as Brooks is one of the few prisoners we see leave the prison. Brooks, unlike Andy and Red, is not serving a life sentence, but only 50 years. However, over this time, slowly becomes institutionalized, and after being let out cannot keep up with the outside world, and views it as a scary and daunting place, unlike anything he had known before entering Shawshank. This overwhelming fear leads to Brooks taking his own life. While yes, Brooks did eventually gain his freedom from Shawshank, he never truly escaped as he lost touch with the outside world and could not keep up due to his long time in the prison. Brooks is frail, old, and kind-hearted, and makes a big impact on the way we view the theme of freedom in the Shawshank Redemption.
Andy Dufresne is an important character in the Shawshank Redemption as he acts as the main protagonist of the film. Andy is a highly intelligent banker. However, he was sent to Shawshank Prison after being found guilty of murdering his wife and her lover. Andy is a kind character who often enjoys doing good for others. This becomes clear later in the movie, when he is seen helping the prisoners of Shawshank feel free, even if these moments of freedom are only brief. Andy is a determined character. This is apparent as he manages to escape Shawshank using a rock hammer, which Red said it would take someone 600 years to dig a tunnel through the wall with it. Old Andy did it in less than 20. This shows just how determined Andy was to getting out of Shawshank and return to freedom. Overall, Andy appears as a smart, well-educated character, and a character who enjoys doing good for others and those around him. The Warden appears as the big bad in the Shawshank Redemption, running the prison with an iron fist. When we're first introduced to the Warden, he appears as an average religious man, saying, "I believe in two things, discipline and the Bible. Here, you'll receive both." However, we later learn he has corrupted power and abuses it at every turn. After hearing of Andy, the Warden takes a visit to his cell to meet him. The Warden quickly realizes Andy's intelligence and gets Andy working for him. Andy would receive special treatment on the condition he helped the Warden commit tax fraud. After the Warden hears of Andy's potential innocence from Tommy Williams, he is stricken with fear of Andy escaping Shawshank and reporting him for his crimes. It is for this reason he kills Tommy Williams and puts Andy in the hold for 1 month. The Warden appears as an average man on the outside. However, in all actuality, he is a corrupt powerhouse. When the Warden is finally caught at the end of the film, he takes his own life before he can be captured by the police. This shows his true character, as we see he would rather take his own life than lose his power.
The theme of freedom is a core theme in the Shawshank Redemption as it plays a massive role to not only the story but each individual character themselves. The theme of freedom is an important theme as it can work in both ways, whether that be a character gaining their freedom or a character having a lack thereof. We see the theme of freedom from the very start of the movie as Andy loses his freedom entering the prison to when Red gains back his freedom through the parole board in the end. In one of the beginning scenes of the movie, we witness Andy, who has just been convicted of murder, be brought into Shawshank on an armored bus. In the coming scenes, he truly loses his freedom as he is stripped of his clothes, shackled, and hosed down. This scene is symbolic as we see Andy stripped of his clothes that made him a free man and getting into his prison jumpsuit for the first time. This scene symbolizes his transition from freedom to prison life. Another way we see the prisoner's lack of freedom is through Officer Hadley when he yells at one of the new prisoners, "You eat when we say you eat, you piss when we say you piss, and you shit when we say you shit. Is that clear?" It is through this quote we realize the prisoner's true lack of freedom, as they do not get control over any part of their life. This scene is important as when we see Red and Brooks leave the prison, they are wearing their formal clothes that were presumably taken from them when they entered the prison. On top of this, when Andy escapes, we see him rip off his prison jumpsuit. This use of mise-en-scène is symbolic of the fact that these characters are now transitioning from prison life to free life as opposed to the other way round. The theme of freedom is displayed in many other ways, such as camera angles for example. When Andy first arrives at the prison, we get an overhead shot of the courtyard as the bus pulls in. In this overhead shot, we see how the prisoners are surrounded by walls and fences, prohibiting them from escaping and limiting their freedom. This contrasts well with the end of the movie, where we see an overhead shot of Andy and Red on the beach, with nothing but a boat and no walls around them, showing that they are truly free to go wherever they please. Throughout the film, the director makes a magnificent use of camera angles as well as mise-en-scène in order to portray one of the film's most important themes, that being the theme of freedom. At first glance, there appears, in my eyes, nothing wrong with studying the Shawshank Redemption at a senior cycle level. However, some people may be willing to disagree with this statement due to some potentially controversial scenes throughout the film. Some example of scenes that may be viewed as too controversial for a classroom are the scenes depicting Andy nearly being raped, the death of the quote "fat-ass" in the beginning of the film, Tommy's death, as well as the warden committing suicide in quite a gory manner. The idea of the film being inappropriate stems from the fact that it is being shown to a classroom of teenagers. Now, my personal opinion is that the movie is completely fine for senior cycle and that there is absolutely nothing wrong with the film being studied in schools. My reasoning behind this is that while yes, these scenes may be viewed as obscene, there is in reality very little amounts of blood and gore actually shown due to the dark lighting or camera angles the deaths are shot in.
The Shawshank Redemption is without a doubt one of the greatest movies ever made. This is a common opinion, as the film is the ultimate story of friendship, hope, and freedom. Despite being a box office flop, the film has since received multiple award nominations and outstanding reviews from critics for its acting, story, and realism. This movie is definitely a must-watch. It tells the story perfectly from start to finish. In my opinion, the acting by Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins is spot on, and doesn't get enough recognition for how well each scene plays out. Finally, I would rate this movie a 4.7 out of 5, as it is a spectacular film for the whole 2 hours and 20 minutes.